Aw, thank you, Lauren. I just realized I missed your message from earlier. I fucking love dancing. I'd be having dance parties with my son all the time. Oh, that's so cute. Have a nice lurk, bro. Okay, we're starting with older stuff because I think it's the easier things to show, probably. Let's see. So my background in terms of schooling was architecture. So these are like some travel sketches. Getting it down. So it was my plan to like actually do some getting down today, but it hasn't the old hip is in no condition to be doing the getting down. So let's see. This sketchbook here is from a trip to Italy that I did when I was in school along the Amalfi Coast. So let's see if we can. Ooh boy, that's we can Ugh. Focus, please. The light might be too bright here. Architecture training, oh dear, and here I was prattling my wee buildings and Minecraft blushes. Lumpy, for anybody who doesn't know, is a very talented Minecrafter. He has built... I don't even... It's so many blocks in there, Lumpy. It feels like millions. I don't know if you have an actual estimate, but it's utterly insane. It's like a combination of every style that you could possibly imagine, and but it all like it's like this very tightly nested town, and it's all 2 to 3 millions. That's what I thought. Yeah, 2 to 3 million blocks in there, all individually placed. I see you use like copy and paste stuff sometimes, but it's very elegantly woven together. From my experience of architecture, I would say that. Let's see. Well, the light is not happy. Yeah. So this was Marina Grande. So it's just like a little sketches of, this is like what you'd call a plan in architecture. So a top-down view, just sort of like looking at it. And then this is a section. So oftentimes these two things together can kind of give you a sort of full sense of the form of something. Yeah, so that was a little spot. This is like a perspective drawing of that same space. Let's see. I'm not super great at like manipulating the cameras and stuff yet, so I would try to make this better than what it is, but we'll see. We'll see. Golly, fellow caps lock writer. Let's see here. This is a little church from that same area. So here you can see again a kind of plan. So the church itself in a little bit more detail, and then the surrounding area kind of blocked out. And then we've got a facade drawing here, and then a little sectiony doodle do. To show art on stream, I've seen many people use their smartphone as high-def secondary camera fixed on arm. That sounds very, very smart, Lumpy. So I will definitely consider something of the sort in the future. These are kind of cute. There's these are just like little vignette drawings. So not sort of like full perspectives, but they just kind of give you a sense of what this street kind of felt like. There was a bunch of like crisscrossy little vines and stuff growing over here. One of the things that's like really kind of fascinating about that area, or I think a lot of areas that are kind of like a mixture of by the sea and on a mountain, is that it's like streets are constantly doing this, right? It's like they sort of like divide, and you're always like kind of like going up and down, and when we're like navigating around cities, it often feels very flat. But that it's just like this kind of like really dynamic sort of, you're very clearly always traveling in 3 dimensions. You can't go horizontal. Did you have a portable ruler with you? No. One of like the first things that they make you do in like drawing practicing is you just draw lines, just straight lines, and you just practice getting different thicknesses of them and getting them close together and far apart. Yes, that street fork is often at the heart. Yeah. Here's another church. This one was like really kind of interesting. Oftentimes churches are kind of these like independent structures. Here, I think again, it's like about the kind of density that is forced by, being hillside. It's just kind of like clumped and schmooshed into all these other sorts of like residential buildings and stuff. Oh, this is kind of cute. So this is Naples, Italy. It's sort of, if you've heard of like Amalfi or like Positano, those come up kind of often when people are like discussing Italy things. Naples is sort of the main anchor point for this area of Italy, sort of along the southern coast. Not southern. It's like probably like middle, 3/4 of the way down, maybe, on the west side. Anything else interesting? Oh, okay. I think this one was this is probably one of my favorites here. Another church. And again, you can kind of see how like schmooshed into the surrounding area it was. And then this is sort of the square. Something that is absolutely fantastic about European cities is just how built around peopling. It's like obviously way before a lot of these cities took shape, way before cars were around or considered in any way, shape, or form. This was in 2007. So it was I think, yeah, it was my junior year of college. And then another thing that's like really interesting here is like this right here is like pretty common for sort of a church, right? It's like you have the central kind of area, and then you have like the little spots that break off the side, and then sometimes you'll have like little chapels that then come off of that, right? It's like it had this sort of like whole other space right here, and then all of these kind of like, I don't know, just like interesting little church functiony kind of things, but it's like not on the grid, you know, it's kind of all cattywampus and stuff. So it's interesting, like these buildings that sort of come along over like centuries, right? It's like we're so used to buildings being sort of like 5-year, 6-year projects. Sometimes it's more if they're like mega buildings and they cost a bunch and their financing is interrupted a lot. But very common for churches in like the 1200s, 1400s, 1600s to all be the same church that's being worked on. It would be worked on for like 400 years, and it's just sort of this thing that like a city grows up around, right? It's like that ends up being this kind of like major industrial function of the city. Buildings fighting for space is a key element of why we find these old cities so charming. Yeah, big time. The kind of the way that they're sort of like negotiating their boundaries is pretty neat. So this is probably one of the sketches that I'd be most proud of. This is what you'd call like an axonometric drawing. So it's drawn not in perspective, like as a human eye would see it, but it's more drawn like if you had a tiny 3D model that you were standing up above, right? So it's nothing is like skewing, it's sort of like the rigid orthogonal kind of drawing. And so here it's like started with the plan, and then you just kind of like pull all the lines up to build out that perspective. Okay, I think this is the last one from this sketchbook that I'll show. This was in this like really small town. What was it called? Atrani, very close to Atrani. Atrani, do you ever do a wash of watercolor with your sketches? Very good question, Space Grimes. And also, hello, and how are you doing? And welcome in. Maddie Holmes, thank you for the follow. I really appreciate it. We'll look at another kind of piece that I've been working on for about a year that is very ink and watercolor heavy. So we'll be looking at something like that in a little bit. Yeah, so it's this super small town that's outside of a small town, that's outside of a medium-ish kind of size town, that's outside of like Naples, which might be like I don't know what to call it. I don't think it's as big as Chicago. It might be like an Austin size kind of deal. So it's like this really small town, and then there's this church that's out on the edge of this cliff here. So yeah, big cliffside here. This is all ocean kind of out here. This is like if you were to do a karate chop through there and split it open, this is what you'd be seeing there. So it's just like this really kind of interesting protrusion, pretty small, because there's obviously not like a ton of people around there. This is like the 3D view of it. Yeah, it really just caught my eye. And then one of the things that was like really surprising that I found out later is MC Escher also did a drawing of that same exact building. And it's just sort of like a little bit jarring because it felt like kind of like the end of the earth in a way. You know, it's just sort of like out in the middle of nowhere, and then there's like this big old protrusion kind of thing. So yeah, that was neat. Sugar Plum Waltz, hello and welcome in, and thank you for the follow. For anybody who's just kind of jumping in right now, we're taking a look at some sketches that I did quite a while ago, almost 20 years ago. I can't believe that's true, but it is. And then we'll be looking at other art that I like and other art that you like. Handy says, I love Escher too. Um, Very cool. So maybe we'll look at some Escher. I think some of the art that I want to do, that kind of bigger piece that I was talking about, um, almost a little bit Escher-esque, in terms of like what's in my head, like not necessarily exactly with all of the, he has very like particular distortions, that he sort of like renders on space, right? And I think it's like I sort of want something that's like that, but maybe he has like some of these like more like pattern based works of art that's it's probably a little bit closer to that, where it's like animal shapes that sort of like bleed into each other. Okay. This was that same year. So it was a study abroad, and part of the study abroad, being architecture, was study abroads from your study abroad. So you had to go on kind of sketching trips. So this one was to like Norway, Sweden, Finland. Went up there with a couple of my classmates, and it was October. It was like the start of October, and so we thought like, oh, it's like fall, right? Just like fall weather. So we all bring kind of like little jackets and stuff, and we get up there and it's like the middle of winter to us. So we got into Norway, flew into Oslo, and our great plan was that we were going to drive our way to Bergen. So Oslo is kind of on the southern tip of Norway, and Bergen is on the far west coast of it. Still more on the southern side, right? Because like Norway goes all the way up into the sort of Arctic. But yeah, so we drive, and it's we're like starting to drive, and it's like we're going up little foothills, and it's getting like snowier, a little bit snowier, and then we're like going up like a mountain, and all of a sudden we're driving through I kid you not, the snow was like, I think 3 or 4 feet above the roof of the car. I don't even know how they plow these things. It's just, we were just like driving through Snow Valley, and we were pretty convinced that we may or may not die. Because there's like a lot of, you end up doing like a lot of switchbacks, right? Because you're going up and then going down, up and down, as you sort of like pass through different fjords and stuff. Really, really beautiful. But yeah, there was probably like an hour and a half there. And of course, we're the silly little American under 20-year-olds for the most part. And so we got this car that did not have snow tires, right? It was like the cheapest rental car, and just like a beater. And so then on our way back, there was like this long hill that we were going up, and then the car just like starts skidding back down. So we all like get out, and we're like trying to hoof this little car up to this thing, and finally a truck driver stops, and he's like, you need to go get some snow chains. Like, you guys are gonna die, please don't do this. So he directed us very kindly back to a little store that had a bunch of supplies and stuff. Anyways, here is some some of the sketches. So this is not the line work of the other sketches, but more pencil kind of shading. So this is like port area in Norway. We can see here kind of a little church that's on a little waterway. That's kind of boring. This completely sent me. So this is a really famous library in architectural history. I think it's the Asplund Library. Yep, there we go. Um, Early 1900s, sort of in the vein of like very geometric kind of stuff. And then out in front of it, I had to put this in the drawing. It was just like a 7-Eleven. And I could not stop cackling at there being a 7-Eleven there. And then one of my favorite movies is Dumb and Dumber. So big gulps, huh? Cool. Here is more library stuff. So the library is like this. It has that big cylinder that you could probably see from the outside, and so this was sort of the interesting thing about it is the way that it was sort of put together. You get up through kind of the other parts of the building, and you're sort of like walking up, and then there's these like giant thick walls that you go through to the kind of main book space. And yeah, it just provided like a very interesting. Here we go. Let's see this here. Like the way that the books almost become sort of like part of this internal facade in a way. You sort of travel through all this space and you end up in what feels like this kind of like domain of knowledge or something like that. Let's see. Coming up here, this is one of my oh. We're back. So this is one of my favorite buildings. It's by Stephen Hole, who's one of my favorite architects. And he what would I say here? Yeah, he's very contemporary. So I think this building is probably from like 1990s-ish, maybe. And he has like a very deft hand with just sort of like peculiar forms and kind of chunking those together in a way where from the exterior, the buildings have this kind of almost like bizarre-ish nature to them. So like this building on this part here has like all of these little like skylights. So it almost looks like a porcupine in a way. And then this is one of the main entrances here where you kind of travel in through these two big blocks. And he specializes in a lot of like museum architecture, things like that. And so on the interior, here's another exterior shot. This kind of gives you that sense of the little porcupine kind of stuff. Okay, here's a good example of like what he's able to then do on the interior with kind of these forms that he's put together. There's just kind of like these big swooshing walkways, pathways. And yeah, it almost feels like you're sort of exploring like I don't know, like a tomb or something, like a pyramid. Just kind of the way that you're traveling through these big blocky spaces. It's pretty neat. This is in Finland. House by Alvar Aalto. He's probably one of the 3-ish most famous Finnish architects of like the early 1900s to mid 1900s. Lumpy says, when it comes to modern architecture, I still grapple with my internal debate over the dilemma between embracing modernity versus classical styles. Yeah, that's fair. There's so as architects break it down, there's sort of modern, which stretches from like early 1900s up through maybe the 1940s or so. And then it kind of drifts into a high modern, where modern is sort of this process of us purging a lot of the language of architecture. So up until that point, most of like architecture, so not just kind of like random buildings, right, but places where there's a lot of intent, just keeps going back to Rome, quite literally, sort of like through the Renaissance, and up through actually present day. There's these sort of programs, I forget what it's called, but I think it's the Rome Prize, and it's a very prestigious kind of thing where you get to go and sort of situate yourself in Rome for a year or a couple years. And back before like photography was around, this was literally the way that sort of architectural information propagated, is you'd have these students go do drawings and then sort of bring that knowledge back. And so you can see through this period kind of this sort of like revival of old Roman styles, all of the kind of like columns and the very specific ways that they would put those together. And then, it kind of mutates into this sort of Baroque period where they begin playing with those notions in ways that the Romans really didn't. So taking kind of their iconography and sort of playing with it and juxtaposing them in ways that make them sort of feel awkward or different, like putting two columns right next to each other, and sort of using that as a way to like manipulate light and things like that. Thank you for the follow, Hard Bass Fisherman. Really appreciate you coming in. We're talking about art right now. If you want to drop any art or artists that you like, we will happily look at them in a little bit. The 1900s arrive. We get this kind of new building materials. So after Rome fell, humans sort of very literally forget how to use concrete for over 1,000 years. We just stop building with it. So early 1900s, we get concrete back. We get this development of structural steel, and we finally get commercially available glass. And then in a kind of infrastructural way, we get the elevator. So around this period of time, you have like this very interesting sets of like really strong, thick brick buildings where it's entirely brick. There's no structural steel, and they go up 10, 12 stories, something like that. And the walls at the bottom are, I think, 5 or 6 feet thick. So something really quite monumental. And then the real limitation here is not actually our ability to build structurally with brick, but it's that people don't want to walk up that many flights of stairs. At around like 10 flights of stairs, people just go, So modern architecture really ends up like coping with all of this new capability. We can suddenly build buildings that are 30 stories, 40 stories, 50 stories maybe. We don't know how high we can go. And we don't actually have the styles for buildings that look like this. So you get some very awkward things in this transitory period where they're trying to make 12-story buildings look like 4-story buildings. So they just sort of like pretend that like, okay, this whole chunk of stories is one thing, and they articulate it that way on the outside. So modernism is this kind of like purging of all of these old styles where it's like, this doesn't really suit us anymore. It doesn't speak in the language of these materials. that then goes into this kind of high modern where it's this sort of new refinement of a lot of that. And then you get kind of this backlash of postmodern where they start just going crazy with borrowing things from all over. To me, that's where I really struggle. I've come to appreciate them in their own way over time, but it's not something inherently that really clicks with me. And then there's this kind of postmodern, which is what architects refer to as contemporary, and we're getting ourselves into the same modernism problem where contemporaneity is running out and we'll need something else. But that is then kind of a purging of better than brutalism, a purging of all of that kind of like play of symbols, and really looking, architects refer to it as like looking at form itself, and from that beginning to drift to this idea of like the diagram, which is a little bit complex, and we'll probably just drop that there. I'm going to catch up with chat here since I'm a wee bit behind. When it comes to modern architecture, I said, yeah, that's what I was talking about. Do you think Wright is overrated or rated? Also, I know you're not supposed to, but I love brutalism. Thank you, Handy. Lumpy says, modern styles are too bereft of fine details. It's often large geometric experiments, but the trims are simplified textures smoothed out. So Lumpy, this is actually one of these things that I really, really love about Stephen Hole. And he's not alone in this. There are other architects that fit in this vein as well. But where their sort of take on contemporaneity is they do speak in this kind of language of form and kind of reduction. But the other part of that is they go really, really deep into the materiality of it, and exploring just in the finest level of detail how these materials assemble and how you then make the articulation of that into a kind of structured art form. So we'll see if there's some pictures that I can like get off of my phone for us to look at, or I can pull up some examples too. But I think that's the kind of contemporaneity in architecture that I love the most, is those moments where the architects are really investing in that materiality and that kind of deep dive on that. Roman architectural fan fiction. That's a very good way to describe it, Maddie. Thick brick. There's another thick that we'll be looking at. So I said thank you, Handy, for declaring love for brutalism. I'm a secret brutalist fan, and this will link back to the Frank Lloyd Wright thing. I actually kind of like brutalism, but only for some buildings. I think this is a fair critique. So Frank Lloyd Wright is one of what architects would consider like the three great modernists. So there's Frank Lloyd Wright in the United States. Le Corbusier, who's a Swiss Frenchman, primarily practicing in France. And then there's Mies van der Rohe, who's a German. And he has to flee Germany because of World War II. And so I tend to think, particularly in America, that Frank Lloyd Wright is overrated. It's impossible to say that he didn't impact architecture in a monumental way, and he is very innovative. I think maybe my critique is coming from the space that these other two kind of operate in. And so Mies van der Rohe relocates to Chicago And he's really a part of making Chicago this kind of hub of skyscrapers. So him and his students back in Germany do some of the very first concept sketches of like what does a steel and glass skyscraper look like, and that ends up being fundamentally the foundation of 100 years of skyscrapers until we start really playing with them quite a bit more in kind of the early 2000s. Le Corbusier stays sort of located in France, and his architectural style is it's very much coming from this idea of minimalism and kind of that stripped down kind of stuff. He is probably my absolute favorite from this period, maybe of all time. And so a lot of his work and a lot of what brutalism in particular comes out of is this reaction to the very real and tangible horrors of World War II. So obviously we know Europe was left utterly ravaged, France in particular, in terms of sort of built infrastructure, but also in terms of the kind of like intellectual and craft infrastructure as well. So a lot of the craftsmen of this time and of this area of the world had to go off to war and were killed. And so there's this kind of very specific problem that the architects of this time were left with of how do we rebuild? Because there's so much to rebuild. There's so many resources that have been spent, and there are so few people who know how to do what we need to do. And so there's this whole sort of like series of projects that Le Corbusier does that are called the Unité d'Habitation. It's the unity of living. And a lot of his, and this fits very well with my brain too, a lot of how he thinks about space and what architecture is doing. He has this kind of poetic side and a sort of more realist side. The realist side is this kind of the machine for living is how he sort of conceptualizes architecture. So this idea that the living space should be this kind of supportive infrastructure that that really allows you to livable boxes. Real vain. Yes, I have four dogs. We should switch to infrared structure. Yeah. So the poetic side is they are all mutts. They're all mutt dogs. They're all from the streets. Yeah, they're kind of like Chihuahua Terrier-ish mixes. The poetic side is architecture is the play of light and shadow, and I don't know, that sinks in a certain way. So yes, Lumpy, boxes for humans, but he specifically was thinking about boxes that anybody can build and build very cheaply, but that even with that kind of reduction and austerity are things that are supportive to the human spirit. So let's see here. There's let's pretend this right here is a good drawing. But let's pretend that this here is like an apartment building, right? A typical apartment building will have a hallway and then a unit on either side of it, hallway, unit on either side of it, hallway, unit on either side of it. And these spaces might end up being sort of like small or cramped or kind of weird or whatever. One of the things that he finds very important is this idea of kind of double height spaces and this notion that yeah, I guess that kind of connection to just sort of the circadian rhythms and all of that. And he comes up with one of the sort of like most ingenious things that I think I've ever seen, which is that you don't sort of like stick units on either side of a hallway on all floors. You take a hallway every other floor, or every 3 floors actually it is, and you release the rest of that space to these units that end up kind of hugging around that sort of single hallway, right? So this person's unit, you walk in on this floor and there's this giant double height space that light is sort of pouring in, and everybody has their own balcony, and then also everybody has their own kind of sunshades that are built into the building as part of it. And then this guy as well, or these people as well, they come out of their hallway and they're on sort of the second floor of their thing, right? And he sort of goes down all supportive is what I meant. He goes down to sort of all of the like breaking down the human body to like really understand what makes spaces very functional. I'm trying to defend brutalism too hard, probably. I like his brutalism in a lot of ways. This happens very commonly, and it's sort of a trope in architecture that when things come across the pond from Europe to America, they lose all of their sort of social spirit. So as brutalism lands in the Americas, it's very much this just sort of oppressive efficiency aesthetic. Let's see here. But the wider public's taste evolved much slower than that of architecture community. Many people still naively wants to live in a fairy tale castle. Many rich people build themselves tacky castles. Very true, very gross. I wonder if there would be a blend of style that could serve as a crossover to help the larger audience's taste evolve away from medieval naive tastes. I like that. I don't know what it looks like, but I really like that as a proposition. What supports my spirit is booze and my dog being my friend. Very fair. Very, very fair. I love brutalism. Give me more cement and blood structures. It's a Tetris puzzle to balance human welfare with a pressing need for efficiency and densification. Yes, I think to me there's a way that he really kind of strikes an elegance with that I quite enjoy. That's those sketches. I think we'll visit with one of my favorite pieces of Le Corbusier's. In here. So towards the end of his career, he starts to get actually like very expressive with his styles. He becomes sort of like more playful with it. Honestly, I want to do what the French did, and I'll build a home out of skeletons. Hell yeah. So this is Notre Dame de Haute at Ronchamp. And so here, this is actually like a concrete and plaster building with then this giant kind of concrete roof that's sort of dyed a different color. So it is kind of in this like brutalist aesthetic and also kind of minimalist aesthetic. but the forms of it end up being this kind of very playful expression. Something that I'm probably not going to be able to get the camera to focus on much here is these kind of windows that are cut through what are actually like these kind of it's sort of like those brick walls that I was discussing earlier, where they're like 8 to 10 feet thick, actually. So as you're walking through them, there's just something very like experientially interesting about traveling through walls that are like that. It almost feels like natural or kind of cave-like or something like that. So this is from like the other side of the building, and you can see he's kind of like playing with that notion here. These are bell towers, but they end up framing this sort of walkway into this church here. And there's sort of, from the different sides of the building, you get all these kinds of different sort of shapes. They almost don't look like they belong to the same thing. That's the end. Those are sketches. Okie dokie. So we have some art that we can look at. I'll put me here. Shapes. Euclidean shapes. I think more non-Euclidean shapes. Oh, thanks, Andy. Hopefully that wasn't too boring. That was definitely more architecture-y speaky than I was intending to be, really. I prefer non-Euclidean shapes too, I think. Oh, I'm sorry, flowers. I definitely am struggling against my newness with living in the box of the internet. Da, 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 da. So Lumpy had a very nice suggestion of some art to look at that we will give a peek at. Brekkie Fest Bikaki. No. Oh my goodness. Autocorrect really does not want me to search for this specific thing. Got there. Let's put it on screen. Lumpy, what do you have to say for yourself? Oh my goodness, that is awful. So let's appreciate her art. This is quite something. So I personally like the kind of stealing of the like commercial iconography and repositioning it inside of degeneracy. I like that quite a bit. Thank you for the follow, gangster. Welcome on in. Thank you. We were talking about art right now. We'll be doing art stuff for probably still another hour or so. And then we're going to do some movement, some pretty easy calisthenics, I hope. I hope they're easy. Yeah, talking about other kinds of movement I like to do that I hope to do in the future on this stream. And then we'll be doing some gaming. Let me know if you have any art that you would like us to look at, or if there's any things that you're interested in. Do you mind if I ask how you found the stream? Is this titled Cheerful Nut? I sure hope so. I don't know if it has a title. Does this bee have a name? I can't even recall. Oh my god, the Tricks Rabbit. Hello. Through her best friend Sophie Voulette. Oh, okay. Who's an even... Ooh, okay, all right. Very nice. Count Chocula, and who's this other guy? I like the whole BDSM vibe going on here. All right. Who is this? Are these all still Brekkie? Or B-Khaki? Tony the Tiger? Frankenberry. I don't think I ever had the Frankenberries. All right, a little Captain Crunch. Packing some heat. Oh, very nice. Yeah. Well, thank you for hopping over here. Love a good Swayze stream. Yes. Well, thank you for dropping in. I hope that you have a very nice rest and that your phone does not die. Oh, hello. I particularly like the Fruit Loops here, being part of this whole construction that we have going on here. Yes, Volty, but are you looking respectfully or unrespectfully? Things are starting to get a bit weird for me, so I'm off. Catch you later. Okay, Flowers, I hope we didn't make it too awkward with the content or triggering your daddy vibes. I hope it's well, I hope you're feeling all right and that you rest well. Who's this? Oh, I guess Mrs. Claus, as my brain was thinking. Okay, I think we've reached the end of this collection here. Very nice suggestion, Lumpy. I appreciate the lowbrow along with the pseudo highbrow. I don't know if we're highbrow. Handy brought up MC Escher earlier, so let's give a little looky-doo. So this was kind of the piece that I was thinking about with that might be a little bit the vibe that I want the kind of next art piece that I'm doing to kind of yeah, I like the way that it's like these forms kind of transition into each other, and the way that kind of like pattern and texture and color are sort of playing along with each other. I suppose also this kind of like theme of the natural and then sort of these human encampments that come along with it. That might be something that I'd be interested in kind of looking at more. This is a really just kind of cool distortion. This is, I think, the one that I always think of first when I think of Escher. Why? Lumpy, this reminds me of the building that you were working on before, or this one too. Pretty neat stuff. Handy, do you have any specific art pieces by Escher that you really like? Let's see. I think there are the actual MC Escher I followed is just below that one. Type in MC Escher library. Ooh, is it this one? No. Ah, the tessellations. Yeah, I think it's the tessellation vibe mostly that I'll be picking or trying to pick up on. Oh, okay. Oh, yeah. Let's see if I can figure out how to get this up onto screen. Didn't mean to do an image search, but let's see. There we go. That's better. Yeah. See, now that I'm looking at this more closely, I see sort of more of the things that I think you were doing. Like you have a bunch of columns that are kind of like in this vein, right? It's pretty cool. I remember you bringing this up on stream too. It's a little loopy doo. Lumpy sent his rendition over. Let's give a look. Ooh! That ended up looking really cool, Lumpy. Let's get this up here. Look at that. I think given your constraints of having to work in actual 3D space, this is like a really incredible, uh, really incredible interpretation of it. This here, I think it does a really surprisingly good job of on your first kind of like glance and first grok of it, it gives you sort of that faux impression of it. Everybody should go, click on Lumpy's name and click that little heart. Lumpy streams, I think usually like once or so a week. And this is a lot of what Lumpy does, and then the conversations are also fantastic, and they're sort of all over the place, from highbrow stuff to chemistry to just base degeneracy. And then you get to watch this whole project that he's been working on for years come along, which is really neat. This is just one small little piece of this whole giant kind of infrastructure, so very neat stuff. Let's see here. I think I need to try to plug up my computer here, my laptop, because that's where I do my arting from, and we can see if we can do some art with that, and then also see if we can make our way through some other pictures of foods. I think I wanted to look at food. To me, food is art. So I think that would be a fun little foray to go into today. And I think someday it would be very fun if we could do some kind of like cooking stream, or potentially even like a food challenge stream where you guys submit like, hey, can you make these things taste good together? That would be pretty neat. Let's see here. Another option I considered would be to make it an actual spiral staircase, but playing with wonky water physics in Minecraft. I can make it look like the water would be flowing upward in an impossible way. That sounded super neat when you were talking about that. My mom is an art teacher, so I always had some exposure to art, but I remember seeing a collection of Edgar Degas about ballet, and it's been my favorite ever since, especially his oil paintings. Let's give a look at that. I love dance, and so I think I know which ones you're talking about. Edgar Degas ballet. Yeah, this is the one that I think of when I'm thinking of those. Oh, that ain't it. Yeah, this one here. One of the things that I love about dance so much is just the I don't know, it's like the way that you make shapes with the body that are kind of like storytelling shapes in some way. Yeah, I think he does a very nice job of kind of like capturing that. Faceless but so full of expression, probably due to dance, and the colors are just so good. I love the blues. That's a very good call out. The use of color is very compelling here. I guess this is the teacher here or something. This is interesting. Ooh, the drama. This lady right here. To me, this is very nice. This kind of like just subtlety, the way that it's kind of like implying movement or also they're grinding them rooms are ugly, so they're real AF for that. Handy, always about the grind. Oh, the colors on this are just fantastic. The kind of like green that's slipping into this sort of like teal, the red accents. I think this hits really nicely what you were talking about, Handy, in terms of the kind of like facelessness, but there's still this sort of expression and feel that you're catching off of them. Let's see. So a lot of my favorite works are sculptural. I really like sculpture. So Donald Judd. You know, I guess maybe this goes along with the brutalism vein. I'm very into like the sort of minimalism. So he's this like cubes guy. No, that. So this is like an interesting kind of artwork. I don't always know how to feel like it. Yeah, a kind of sculptural form of Rothko. I think they're very, very similar. These you will see in just like almost every art museum that you go to that has like a focus on sort of modern and contemporary. And they're all sort of like painted different colors, and it's, I don't know, it plays interestingly with that kind of idea of industrialization with art. I'm almost thinking also of like Andy Warhol in a way. They're sort of like not two sides of a coin, but there's something interesting going on with both of their works where it's about it really embraces the idea of almost like manufacturability in art or reproducibility in art, where yeah, I mean it's been sort of a long running thing in art where the artist that we know to go with the work is often more like a lead craftsman who's like guiding all of these other craftspeople along in the production of the work. It's oftentimes so much work is done by other people, and the artist is almost more like a curator or a manager, visionary in a way or something. So I like these whenever I see them. And yeah, it's like, it's almost like the art becomes not the individual pieces, but sort of like this all-encompassing thing where it's like, you know, okay, around this corner somewhere in this museum, I'm gonna run into one of these Donald Judd pieces. I think my favorite work of his, though, is out in Marfa, Texas. Far, far west Texas. And so he has these like two sort of different series that go along with each other. On the outside, in this kind of like gigantic field, is all of these really, really large concrete boxes. And so the walk to actually end up experiencing all of them ends up being like a mile or more, something like that. And so it's just kind of this like slow walk through this landscape, and you have to like go down this big hill to get to the sort of one of the starting points there. And so as you're sort of walking and approaching the actual artwork itself, you're sort of presented, or the individual pieces, you're presented with this kind of like totality that is equal parts like landscape and intervention. And here, so much of his work is about this box, right? And like reducing art, like how do you find art in sort of these everyday-ish kind of materials, and how do you make the kind of and reduced form, and how do you turn that into an experience or something. So part of it is, I think, that kind of observation of the whole, and then being able to go and understand the individual parts of it, and then how on each individual box he's doing something just slightly different. So each one is a little bit different, and then they sort of glue together into this like composite thing. And so here, I think this work of his is really interesting because it becomes so much about that landscape and the way that it frames it, right? So as you're walking, these little frames kind of move along, and it's guiding your vision to look at different parts of the kind of natural surround, which I think is just like conceptually pretty interesting and rich. Oh, here's a Rothko handy. Or is that not him? That's a building where a lot of his stuff is. This is Rothko. This is Rothko chap. So to me, like I think why I click so much with modern art, which really sort of parallels that movement of modern architecture, is it's so much about the materiality of things, and really kind of investigating that, right? So like modernism in painting is very much about this kind of purging again of like the old iconography of things. So where we spent like 2 centuries trying to figure out how to draw rich people in more and more interesting ways, or draw scenes from the church, or draw scenes from war and conquest and things like that, and sort of bring new kinds of drama to those subjects. Modernism is this kind of like purging of that kind of classical subjectivity, of that kind of patronage sort of model, maybe, and really asking like, what is this practice that we're doing? I think another piece of it that I find interesting in painting is the very real kind of conundrum that they find themselves in at kind of the middle 1800s, 1900s, as cameras and photographs are coming along. What does that mean for an art that historically has made itself about representation specifically? How do we get our representations of humans more and more accurate? How do we then tell stories with those kind of representations? If a photograph can make the perfect thing, what does that mean to be a very skilled painter? And so kind of this turn back into the materials itself. So a lot of people find like modern painting, particularly this kind of minimalist form of modern painting, really dry. And I think it can have the tendency to be dry in photograph for sure. Like this, I think is actually still pretty compelling because of the way that it's assembled. In the Rothko Chapel here, it's an octagonal building, and you can kind of get a sense of scale from this bench here, just how large these pieces are. But they are probably, I want to say, like 14 feet tall or something. When you're up next to them, you are utterly dwarfed. And so it's a thing where, like, really you can actually put your own body close enough to these things where it is your entire field of view, right? You are encompassed in this case by the kind of darkness of these colors. But once you really get in there, you start to see all of these kind of like layers of the different strokes that he's actually building this kind of texture up with, that you can see even here. You know, it's not a singular just flat black kind of thing. We're seeing sort of highlights of light, but there's other kind of like textural sort of gradations in that. And so I find that just that really like detailed focus on what does it mean to like mix paint of really specifically different colors, of fine shades of different colors, of different thicknesses that will sort of react and kind of glomp differently on canvas. Yeah. There was one more Donald Judd piece I wanted us to look at, just because it very much like speaks in relationship to this one. It's at the same place. So towards the middle end of his career, Donald Judd purchased the place where this work is. It's an old military outpost. So far west Texas. Here you can see one of the classical buildings that they've restored there. Here it is. That's the piece. Not that. Ah, that's great. So there's that big landscape with all the concrete stuff, and then sort of perched right there on the edge of this hill that goes down into that is this very sort of stripped down building. It was a military no. It functioned as one of the military buildings, and across sort of like three big halls, so we're looking across one of them, is all of these boxes. So it's just three lines of these boxes that fill up this whole space, and all of them follow this very simple kind of set of rules. They're all exactly the same kind of envelope or outer dimension that they're working in. And across the 130 something of these, it's every one of them finds a way to be different, which feels impossible, and it ends up feeling a little bit miraculous at the end, like he's really actually exhausted all the possibilities that this could be. So that's kind of neat. And I think, to me, there's also, it feels like there's this kind of echo with the space itself, in terms of it's like the military churning out sort of all of these like identically operating human widgets, right? And yet they all come from different backgrounds, from different things, but they're sort of pushed and forged and molded into these sort of identical things marching in a row. And then to sort of feel that kind of constraint up against that other piece that's outside, that's really about the kind of chopping up of the landscape and feeding different vistas into your mind. Interesting. All right. With that, I am going to try to plug in my laptop here. So I'm going to disappear for a second right around this corner. And with the half an hour or so, we'll see if I can like sketch a little bit of an Eschery something or other. So one moment while I try to get this thing connected. Right, right, yeah. Depersonalization, I think, is the word that I was trying to look for. So thank you for that one. Oh, this one makes me so sad.
My ex-girlfriend was a witch. That's not a joke, yeah. She came out of the broom closet during the pandemic, yeah. She did, and I'm half Mexican. Can you tell? Poquito? I bring that up because if you say you're a witch to the Mexican community, it's like demonio, you know. I'm out of here. And then she's like, no, I'm a sweet witch. I'm like the pink one from Wizard of Oz, not the green one. And I was like, well, what do you do? And she said, one thing I practice is called sex magic. I was like, okay, I'm listening, yeah. And she's like, no, it's not what you think. What it is, it's a shortcut to manifestation. And what you do is you whack it, and when you come, it's a powerful time in your loins or the universe. I wasn't really listening, you know. Essentially, you flick your bean to achieve your dream, you know. That's the cliff notes right there. And I believe in weird shit. I'm a hippie, dog, you know? I believe it. I realize many of y'all don't. I got 3 rocks in my pocket right now, bro. Not that kind anymore, though, you know? I got just some quartz, some amethyst, you know? Imagine the power in that. What if we could whack off and achieve goals, achieve dreams? What if we did it collectively as a human race? In different rooms, of course. Yes, he did. But the same goal, we were like, free Ukraine! Don't worry, that's the one political joke I got.
Leadership looks fun, but it's
100%.
If you ever see anyone leading a conga. Oh, on the outside, they're loving it, sure. The whole times. Put your drink down. Yes, you bloody are, mate. Come on! In their heads, just, I know where I'm going. Oh, I didn't plan a route. I never asked for any of this. God, I miss my family.
Let's see, did I have this one set up better? I don't know. All right, I have my laptop plugged in here, so just getting it up onto screen, and we'll start playing around with shapes and stuff.
The point of the thing I'm trying to say is this. I'm going to make a stand. Right here, I started a hunger strike. That's right.
I picked you up this morning. Remember that?
Yes.
We went to Denny's. You had 2 eggs over my hammy and half my pancakes. Then on the way over here, we stopped at 7-Eleven. You remember that?
Yeah.
You had a few hot dogs and a big bag of pork rinds.
Yeah.
And 5 minutes ago, you had 4 donuts and a chip whiz.
Yeah, well, you snooze, I eat half your pancakes. But listen, that was to bulk up, to carve up for my big hunger strike.
Okay.
So this is my promise to the people of the world. I will not eat a single morsel of food until Margaret Thatcher is dead and buried.
She died 3 weeks ago. We'll be right back with Larry King.
I love Norm Macdonald's goofiness.
I'm a woman, but if I'm going to be paid a lot less than Greg yet, no, I no longer identify as female.
I am a rich little man. I'm a cash cow, he, him, I am a Mr. Sir Moneybags.
Leadership looks fun, but it's stressful. It's like if you ever see anyone leading a conga. Oh, on the outside, they're loving it, sure. The whole time. Put your drink down. Yes, you bloody are, mate. Come on! In their heads, just... I know
There we
where I'm
go.
going. Oh, I didn't plan a route. I never asked for any of this. God, I miss my family.
Let's make me small. There we are. That's better. So this is the file that I made the background for the stream in, and I liked the colors, so I wanted to grab some of those. All right, we're getting an artboard here for, so like I said before, there was a map kind of project that I've been working on, and I like the, it's 24 by 36, so I have a spare canvas, so that's kind of what I'm thinking about working on, and I really like the kind of style that I've been working in of a mixture of sort of watercolor and ink. Let me grab, even though the camera doesn't see it very well, I'll grab a couple things. You can get a sense of what some of it looks like. I think this is not gonna show well, but nope. I don't think there's any way we're getting around this. I don't think it's gonna pull out any detail. Let's see. Maybe if I flick the light off, we can get it. Oh, that's a little better, huh? So You're not getting a lot of sense of the color, but the color is meant to be like pretty subtle. So I think that's sort of something that I might be working with, is sort of like gradients, where if you look really close, you can tell the difference between sort of the different colors. But other than that, it almost just kind of like flows together, I think. And then I really like the kind of like all these little ticky-tacky little points. There's something just kind of fun about those. Here was another like little experiment that we did. Here the colors are sort of like much more intense. I think something in those colors, but like maybe a smoother sort of like gradation between them could be pretty interesting, and then kind of like playing that against just sort of the negative space, I think could be pretty cool. I need to change the units that this is in. There we are. Inches. So I think we want it to be vertical. So we'll do 24 wide by 36 tall. And I think that I want it to have like these sort of like crisscrossy kind of lines. So we'll experiment with some of that. I'm not sure if I want them to be like 45-degree angle, or maybe different, like 30-60. We'll give a look at that too. See if I remember how to use this program. Transform, rotate. We'll go 15 degrees from here. Okay. So we're just gonna start creating a little bit of a grid with these lines, and then see what we can start to see from there. So let's go up by 1/6 of an inch. I think we want it to be more. Uh, have a nice lurk, Lumpy. Have a good cleaning the kitchen. Yeah, Rip King for sure. Norton's jokes are interesting. I think we're going to be better served by the more angular one. Let's go with that. I think 1/2 inch is probably the right move. Starting now. What angle are we looking for here? 180. Nope, that's all the way around. 60? Okay, there we go. So I sort of want these grids almost like a flannel or something, but where they create like these different pockets amongst them. And then in those pockets, I don't know, maybe it's not really like the full tessellations of Escher, but almost like each little pocket then can then become its own sort of like vignette of some sort. That is like juxtaposing sort of natural and kind of like human intervention. So that across this big piece, maybe you have like this sort of like overall gestalt that like you can see sort of a form and structure in, and then as you get up into it, you see all these kind of like little worlds in it. A little bit like a Where's Waldo almost is the vibe that I just got from my own description of it. Okay, this grid is definitely way better than the other one, so we're just gonna get rid of that guy. And that gal. I don't know that we copied any styles ever, did we? No. How do I want to do this? I think we'll paint in some of it. Let's live paint in here again. G. Nope. Hi! Oh my god! Welcome in. Thank you for coming. Thank you for being here. So Avi, we're doing some arting right now for only a little bit longer. It's not coming along very quickly, but we also didn't start till just recently. Sorry, Lumpy. Lumpy, this is my friend Avi. Avi, this is my friend Lumpy. Lumpy does some amazing Minecraft kind of world building, fantasy world building. I think you would like it a lot, actually. Yeah. So we've been around the topic of art for a while. We were talking about some of our favorite artists. So we hit on Escher. Handy Coils brought up Escher. That was a fun little jaunt. And then Lumpy brought up some like cereal mascot furries. And so that was very fun. That was very nice material. I think you would like them a lot too, actually. I'm sure Gail would appreciate them also. Yeah, so I have this canvas that's like 24 by 36, and I'm working with like a watercolor and ink kind of thing. And so right now I'm just trying to like sketch out a little bit of a grid, and then kind of start trying to fill some of that with color. And what I'm struggling with the just the technical aspect of filling it with color presently. And in a little bit we're gonna I'm gonna be doing some moving, and I would invite anybody and everybody to join along if they feel so moved. I think it's in here somewhere. I might just start sketching with other shapes. find this kind of orangey yellow very compelling. Let's see, I did that in a silly way. How was your day, Avi? What did you do? Deezy! Hi! Welcome on in. We're arting, not for very much longer. I was just telling Avi and everybody else. We've been doing arting for 2 hours or so, and we're gonna go on to moving our bodies around in a little bit. Let's see, I need to be specific with how I'm rotating this. How was your day? What did you do? I hope you've had a fun and fulfilling Saturday. There we go. Now this little dude can come along. Come on down there. Aw, you and Newt, a little lunch and dinner. A little dinner. What did you guys have? Clip, clip, clip in, clip in. We went to a beer hall and shared appetizers and have some yummy drinks. Very nice. Very nice. We want all of these to be on a different layer so we can play with them. Let's see how this feels. It is. DZ, do you have any favorite artists? I know your graphic design work is incredible. Let's give these an opacity so that they can start to layer up differently, too. We can just go and get those. Let me sketch with these. Mad Squirrel. That's a cool name. We're doing a little bit of art, Lauren. Thank y'all so much for coming out. It has been tons of fun having y'all here. So this is like just at like the very start of things. If you weren't here when I was explaining it, I have been working on a map for somebody, and it's in a watercolor and kind of ink style. And ooh, I like how this one's ending here. And I have an extra canvas, so I'm trying to. Yo, Steffi! Hello, 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 hello. We are doing some arting right now. We're about to go on to moving ourselves. As soon as I can get like 2 steps further on this thing. So right now we are just concepting basically like how to use that canvas that we have. And so I liked some of these colors that I was working with for the stream background and stuff. And so that's kind of where we're at with this arting experience right now. We're driving. I'm a passenger, but it's hard to hear, so I'll catch you in like 30 minutes. Okay, very good. Have a very nice drive and safe drive. Easy. Steffi, if you stick around or come back later, you can cackle at me attempting to do Super Mario very quickly, but very slowly instead. We're also going to do some community games if we have people around for it who want to play. How's your day been, Steffi? What have you been up to? Ooh, I kind of like how these things are like almost interlacing with each other. I don't really know why they're doing that, but that's kind of cool. I think that will be something that I want to get into further. And then I sort of like the idea of some of these things almost being like little pockets that come down. So I'm gonna just doodle some little lines here to remind myself of that. I think this could be neat. So where I'm seeing this going is having these these different little pockets here kind of form up into different little like kind of environments. Yo, zucchini! Thanks for coming. We're doing some like very brief and chaotic art. I think so. It's 7, and this is about when I said I would move over to like moving stuff. So this is not a lot, but I think it's like it's kind of getting the start of where I want to go with it. And I think that's maybe enough for today to hang on to that idea. Thank you, zucchini. I think the colors are really compelling. I'm not convinced that the grid that I've drawn is anything meaningful yet. But I think it's starting to like help me understand some of the interactions with it. I think maybe something that we're not seeing here yet, but that could help is almost if like these bands of color that are sort of gridding this space, if sometimes they sort of like skewed and went up and sort of bent over, so that we're kind of getting more different sort of energy out of them. And I think more of how these kind of are like weaving into each other. And then I think this will actually look really, really nice with the watercolors, where you're just kind of getting this sort of like subtle layering over and like differences with each other. And then like I've been working a lot with kind of like stippling and yeah, just like sort of pointillist kind of pen techniques. And so in here we're gonna like draw some cute little trees in the final version of it. Trees are kind of like natural scenes. And then yeah, we were talking a lot about Escher today, and he has like reality sort of bending stuff, but it seems like a lot of his stuff is also this kind of like juxtaposing of natural and human, and kind of seeing those things like intertwine with each other. So I think that is where we will leave this one for today. We will plop it out here and call this concept sketch. Very nice. All right. Okay, I need to put on the BRB screen. So, dogs. Sorry, Big Lumpy. I should have you meet my dogs, though. Not all of the commands I was able to actually get to. Zucchini, if you feel like
How are you so rich? Dude, it's because my brother does
seeing
OnlyFans,
other
bro.
things.
It's crazy. It makes so much money, bro, right?
I don't sell OnlyFans.
No, you know what?
There are some
Then what?
commands you can do.
I only sell fans, not I.
Yeah, see, you do OnlyFans.
No, I sell fans.
I will BRB.
Like you take pictures, you know, like OnlyFans, right?
No,
Then what?
fans. The spinning one.
Nossa, que. Ele colocando bem lá dentro. Que loucura é essa?
just got back from a run, and to cool down, I fingered my stink portal for about 5-10 minutes, and it felt amazing. I live in a high-rise, so it's very grounding to stick your fingers up your portal and get really earthy, and then sniff like Molly Shiny. Go rub, 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 and then stick it right in the portal if you're more advanced, and then oh my god, it's amazing.
You're scary.
Oh, God.
Ay.
Holy fuck, I thought I was tripping balls. What the fuck?